Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome. You know me by now. I'm Anna K. Morris, the Chief of Sparkle at We Play Everywhere, and I am so excited to have Liz Dederer here with me as we play with finances. That's right. If you were wondering what I just said, I said we play with finances. So a huge component of We Play Everywhere, really like the pillar of We Play Everywhere, is that we play everywhere. So it's a metaphor, and we want it to be literal in your life. But we look at 13 areas of life that all start with the letter F because we want you to fail at being a grown-up. So, Liz, I know that I've talked to you extensively about that. And, you know, we range in topics from faith to finances today, and soon we have foreplay. So, and everything in between. Yeah. And I'm so honored to have you, Liz, today because, you know, what you talk about with people and their relationship to money, is really like the crux of having financial abundance. So without further ado, I'll have you introduce yourself.
Yay. So I'm Liz Dederer, and I co-created a program called The 8 Languages of Money. How far do you want me to go into my story?
As far as you want to go for, yeah, just go and I'll stop you.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, I have the corporate background like maybe many of you who are watching do, and was doing great. I grew up in retail, doing strategic growth, marketing, sales initiatives, writing training programs. You can hear my monotone. I loved it. It was fabulous.
That's why I'm like, I just fell asleep, Liz.
This is what I did for my career. And I found out I was pregnant. And I just looked around my office and I saw like all these crazy cubicle moms that, you know, were coming to work with Cheerios in their hair. And I had always had a business alongside my career up until that point. And I just said, you know what, it's not going to get any easier from here on out. So yeah. I might as well just do it full on now. So like any normal person, when they find out they're pregnant, I started a business that same week. And the business I started was with a franchise company doing web design. And I basically, you know, long story short, just kind of promoted my web design business. By the time my daughter was 7 months old, I was able to leave my corporate job, and now I was building like this little marketing company, and I was doing web design for small businesses and building this little marketing team. And I was, you know, alongside having conversations with my clients about how they can, you know, I was doing sales trainings and I was doing all this other stuff. I was giving that to them. Yeah. And someone said, Liz, that's a consulting. You can, you know, just get rid of your product and just go into consulting. So I was like, cool. All right. That's smart. Let me get rid of all the overhead. Let me get rid of all the consultants and just be me. And my clients were getting better results from the strategies I was giving them anyways. So overnight, I shifted my business. It was, you know, within the course of a few weeks or whatever, shifted my business from the web design into just consulting. But overnight, my income kind of dried up. I was doing really well in my web design business, and then I stepped into just consulting, and my business kind of dried up because I didn't have the safety net of a product anymore. It was just me and my experience, and I had to put a price tag on me, and that felt really slimy and salesy and uncomfortable. And I had no line that I could, you know, that I couldn't go below. I had no wholesale price. So my money stuff came up very quickly. And as I was going through that, I started to see the reason why my clients are having a hard time with sales or growth or team building even is because their money stuff is coming up. So this 8 Languages of Money assessment program training was born from that as a way for me to really get in a fast and laser focused way to address people's money stuff without doing one of these, to do it in a way that they could receive it and hear it. So some of the language I use is, it's not you, it's your accumulator. It's not you, it's your nurturer, right? So those are some of the money languages coming up. And that's kind of how the whole thing was born, to help me step into my own confidence and value around service work without a product, and to help my clients have sales conversations fluidly, easily, with confidence.
Yeah, it's so funny that, I mean, it's always perfect how these shows get manifested, right? And the timing of it, because I was in a conversation last night. I do a lot of work. I know I've mentioned it to you through Landmark Education, and it's a personal development course. And we had one of the forum leaders in the world come to Houston. And the conversation was all about family, and that everything, whether you realize it or not, or whether you want to or not, really gets constructed at an early age at the dinner table or somewhere within the family dynamic. And so the conversation last night is like, what are the conversations that you're having? And it makes me think, like, what are the conversations that you're, sorry if there's feedback, you guys, if you're regular watchers, you know that Barney is right over here, my dog. And
my cat just jumped in the window over here. I'm just like, don't notice.
I know. Well, and it's great because usually a lot of times I'll film in the afternoon, and the mailman will always come, right? Yeah. And now it's in the morning, and Barney's like, what are you doing, lady? It's time for my walk, right? Like, why are you talking to Liz?
Yeah.
So
come on.
Anyway.
It's your priority.
Yeah. So, we were talking about that, and it got me really thinking in preparing for the show today of like, what was the conversation in my family about money? And then how did I latch on to that, like, unconsciously? Yeah. So I'm curious. I'm sure you do a lot of that with your clients, and you watch people do that in their lives.
One of the first, we were just chatting briefly before we started that with my clients, what I have them do is, a pretty thorough assessment before we really start working together.
Yeah.
For them to do a deep dive of themselves, because when do we ever sit down and have money conversations about money and our relationship with money? So it's really for many of my clients, it's kind of the first time that they're doing this exercise. And one of the questions is to tell me about your money memories, and I phrase it in a few different categories. It's always comes back to childhood. It always comes back to childhood, and it comes back to how the mother was with money, how the father was with money, and how those two, how their relationship with money has negatively impacted the individual that I'm working with. For example, I have a client whose mother had a lot of money. And she said, I just wish that my mother loved me as much as she loved her money. I have another client whose mother didn't have any money. They grew up very poor. And she says, my mother was afraid, to spend any money because we never had it. So she has a very heavy fear-based relationship with money, whereas the other client spends money seeking approval. And it's wild to see. And of course it freaks me out as a mom where, my daughter's 3.5 and I'm her role model. And I'm like, in every word that I say, I'm like, try not to screw her up. But I'm so, hyper aware of it. And it's just, one of my early mentors, I think, said it very well, where she said, when we're at a dinner table and we're asking someone to pass the salt or pass the bread, we don't get worked up about it. There's no emotion involved, unless like we're ravenous and it's like, give me the bread. But other than that, a normal person is just like, please pass the salt. Can you pass the bread, please? Yeah. And it should be the same, no emotion when it comes to money, when it comes to finances. I think it's just a bunch of nonsense that we get all worked up about it, because at the end of the day, it's just money.
Yeah, and it's so funny because, it's when we attach meaning to it, right? Like there's so much meaning to money that it can't be as simple as pass the salt. And we've got evidence everywhere, right? Like turn on the TV, that that there's a lot of meaning. But like one is good, the other is bad, so on and so forth. So I'm curious about what was your early, let's just like go there, get vulnerable, what was your early money like conversation?
Yeah, we grew up poor. We grew up, I never really knew we were poor, but I grew up in Alabama, never really knew we were poor until we moved to Connecticut in Fairfield, which is a little bit of a little culture shift.
That'll change you.
That'll change you. So here I am, the Southern bumpkin coming up, and hi y'all. And they're like, what's wrong with her? Why does she sound like that? So I was little and lost my Southern accent very quickly. So that was one kind of challenging thing. But around money, all of a sudden I'm going to school with these girls with girl clothes that fit them, and I'm wearing my boy cousin's clothes. And that was what we wore. Or we had some nice clothes too, but I do remember wearing shoes that were too big because that's what we had, and things like that. I also remember my mother making a very big deal about saving $5 a week so that she could buy this pot or kitchen thing or whatever. And I remember, I mean, this was in Alabama, so I was 5 or so, and I specifically remember thinking to myself at that time, why would you save $5? Why don't you just go out and spend it? And I remember that memory very vividly. My mother is a strong accumulator where saving is very easily normal and natural for her. And I'm not. I saw her saving as creating lack. I saw it creating, I saw her sacrificing what she wanted in the moment for this, putting a higher value on this thing at the end, and said, why don't you just have fun now? And those money memories were ingrained very early on for me. And it's prevalent now where saving is very hard for me. Spending is very easy for me. And yeah, it was just, it was funny when I connected those dots, because, the early childhood memories, it's the early childhood memories. And then, like you were saying, it's what does society do to us in terms of pre-programming us and conditioning us and our beliefs. Because you said something earlier I wanted to expand on, where you said something about mixed messages, where we're kind of told and programmed that those rich people and people with money and the greed and all this other stuff, but then conversely we're told, go out and work really hard for money and make all this money because you need it. And there's two totally opposing messages. So of course on the inside our head is like, what do we do with this? And then it's whatever our parents kind of tell us or share with us, etc., that just mixes us up. And it is normal to have massive confusion around it. But I think where I show up with the work that I do, it's just kind of to say, it doesn't have to feel that way just because it's always been. And because that's the way it is everywhere, it is still a choice to operate like that. And you don't have to be anything other than what you are. But what's most important is to understand in very clear, precise language what is your relationship with money? How are you hardwired? And let's just build a world around you that supports you.
It's so perfect to go back and look at that family connection and the childhood, because I came from a family that was always budgeting. And I hadn't really thought about this until the show. Until right now. And I'm thinking, well, that's ironic because I resist budgeting. So isn't that really perfect? Because, I can remember my dad telling me this story that when he was a Marine, and I forget what was going on in his life, but he had enough money for a 6-pack of beer a week. And so he would drink half a beer every night, and he would put a cork in it. And he would have a half a beer every night so that he could make it last. Right. And because of that, like, my dad was able to retire at 52. So he was really, really beyond wise. Like, he's, I think, probably not worked more than he worked at this point because he's 78. So do the math. Anyway. And it's funny because I am the one that's the quickest to spend, not budget, be totally out of control with my finances, because I grew up in a family that was so controlled. And to me, I equated that with being stifled. And
boundaries.
So, it was like I was boxed in, I couldn't do. And now when I look at it, it's like that wasn't the case at all. Like, we went on magical vacations for a family of 4, and the game was that we stay, and I didn't know this until literally last week. My dad told me that he would play a game on our trips that we stay under $100. Like,
oh, wow.
Including hotels. Now, granted, that was in the 80s.
In
in 90s. But Yeah. And so he really made it a game so that we could go, to Europe for 3 weeks. Like that was how it needed to be in order for us to do those things. So when I look back, the reality is that we weren't stifled at all.
Yeah.
I mean, that was just a load of crap that I made up in order to avoid a budget.
But it felt I know what you're saying, because it's I grew up with the very strict budgeting and the watching every dollar. But what's interesting is, even though I was so hyper aware of that and I knew what was going on and the conversations about every penny, etc.
Yeah.
There was never any conversation in my household about money. We never talked about money. I never knew how much anybody made. I never knew about how much things cost.
Yeah.
So now that I look at that, as I'm raising my daughter, I mean, at 3.5, there's only, but so much I can do, but I'm very aware that I let her know that things cost money.
Yeah.
And we do have, and we're learning numbers and all that other kind of stuff. But part of who I'm going to be as a parent going forward is someone that says, well, this is how much mommy made this month. And if you want to buy this or, whatever, like to have those kind of financial conversations. Like if she wants a bologna sandwich and we don't have any bologna, I'm not going to say, well, honey, let's go do something else and like get weird and avoid it. I'm just going to say, well, we got to go to the store. We don't have any bologna or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So why is it any different with money? So we go to the store and it's, she wants this, that, and the other. I say, did you bring your money? Yeah. I'm doing that with her now. And she says, no, I don't have any money. Yeah. And she gets so excited when she finds like a penny on the ground. I have my money. And I'm like, okay, all right, we'll go buy something with your money. Yeah. But it's the fear around saving, because our parents were raised by the Depression generation. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So there was that fear of needing to save, of lack, etc. And they were very smart with their finances, but it did create this fear around money, and then the avoidance of talking about it. I think that doesn't serve anyone. There's no fun in that.
Yeah.
And money is fun, because when you have money, you can do things, but it doesn't mean that you can't have fun until you have money, because the reality is, when you have fun with what you have, and you look at money as something that just adds an exclamation point in the middle of your sentence, in the middle of your day, there's nothing to be afraid of. Yeah. There's nothing weird or uncomfortable or challenging around it. And I know what you're talking about the spending too, because that's totally me. If I have $5, I'll spend 10. Mm-hmm. So one of the ways, a very tactical, practical, actual kind of thing that I've started doing, that I share with clients who are kind of like us, saving doesn't work. Even having a savings account, like, it doesn't necessarily work, because now that's just free money. Yeah. So something that I do, that my clients do too, is it's the concept of tithing, where you take 10% and you pay it to your spiritual source, but you're tithing to your future self.
I love that.
So you take 10%, not of your earnings, because that feels restrictive. You take 10% of your spending. So if you go to the store and you spend $100 on a handbag, for example, A, you got a great deal, but B, you now in your head need to think, okay, this now $100 is actually costing me $110, because I need to take $10 to pay my future self. And then that future, then you get home at the end of the day or the end of the week. I recommend for us who are really on the strong side of celebrity or romantic, where we spend to feel good, that you keep track of your spending on a daily basis. So here's a way to kind of monitor what's going out. So you track your spending on a daily basis, and then you take 10% of that, what you've spent, and you just right away move it into your savings account, but not the savings account that you have attached to your regular checking. You have to open a savings account at a bank that's not easy for you to physically get to or access. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's the trick.
It's funny, because Derek, my husband, and I are working with a Dave Ramsey financial coach.
Okay, cool.
And so we went from June, July, I think, when we started working with him, we were overspending thousands of dollars, to saving $4,000 this month. Like,
wow.
it's such a radical swing.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about it the other day. I'm like, well, what's different? Right? I mean, obviously, like, our bottom line is different, but like the money coming in, not different.
Mm-hmm.
Really not different. It was that we started spending money where we value things.
Mm-hmm.
And what we noticed was that we were investing a lot of our financial resources in things that didn't actually matter to us. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, we were just being lazy about it, as one word, but like little kids. Like, we were being kind of bitchy about it, that we just like didn't want to be controlled.
Like things that felt good in the moment, so you just wanted to buy it. Yeah.
Exactly. And then I wonder, like, why do I need to lose, some weight, right? It's like, well, you can take a look at, the wine bar bill, or, that pizza, or, it's like, well, wait a minute, that's not even alignment with my health values, much less with my financial values. So we just started cutting out the stuff that really, like, isn't important to us. Like, we haven't gone on trips that we had fully planned on going. And then we're like, well, wait a minute, that's not really in alignment with what we're up to. So it was interesting because for the first time ever, I'm like so down with this budget. I'm like,
wow,
beyond excited, like to the point where, like, I'm using cash at the grocery store, and I'm within dollars of what the budget is.
Wow. Because it's you shifted your thinking around it.
Totally.
From to an awareness, which is not scary.
Nope.
Because there definitely was fear there before, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
And money is evidence.
Ooh.
That's all that it is.
Say it again. That was
money
so good.
is evidence.
Okay. Tell me more.
So when you're not having it, it's because you're filling a void somewhere else, or you're doing things, just as you said, out of alignment with your core values. There's evidence there that something that you're doing is out of alignment with you. And when you have money, it's just evidence that you're showing up in the world in service, with value, ready to receive. And you're being responsible. I mean, it's evidence. When I teach sales trainings with my clients, the money is not the thing that you're working for. It's the evidence that you did great value in that sales call.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Because money is just arbitrary. I mean, here's the real secret. How do you price programs? It's just arbitrary. You have to go to a price point that's a comfortable stretch for someone, in my opinion. And you have to know your market, and then you have to put a price that's going to make them feel a little outside of the comfort zone, because they have to stretch. They have to stretch themselves to show up. And you do that through the energy of money, the commitment. Money is the energy of commitment, plain and simple. So it's, what are you committing to? Are you committing to living smaller, enjoying today, having fun in the moment? Or are you committing to this higher version of yourself, your values, the vision board you have in the background? Are you committed to the future life that you want, your future self? So it's just, it's the evidence. It's the evidence of your thinking, of your choices. Does that make sense?
Oh my gosh, it so lands. Yeah, I'm thinking of that right now, because it's funny, I've made no bones about my own self-doubt, right? And I know that's really where we connected, of like, hey, we're strong, powerful women, and then we're like, I don't know, is this it? It's like that.
Yeah.
And I can look and see, like, I was just in that space last week of like, I don't know if I'm doing, do people even care? Like, do they want to play everywhere? Do I know how to play like, who the hell am I to say? And right when that happened, I actually had somebody buy a 1-year membership for We Play Everywhere.
Wow.
Like, that I haven't marketed, that I haven't been talking about, that I have done zero with. And I'm regrouping it. So I was like, well, I don't even know what she's joining, right? Like, as I'm transitioning some things. And it was so cool, because I'm like, oh, yeah. Thank you, universe, for reminding me of like, yeah, what you're providing is valuable. It may not stay in the same form, but the work has value for people. And here's an example.
Money is the evidence and it validates the
I love that.
intention.
Yeah.
Yep. And how we do money is how we do everything. That's
Ooh.
where
Ooh.
understanding your
Yeah.
relationship with money really comes into play. How you do money is how you do everything. So think about it. If you're really tight with, let me rewind for 2 seconds. So the way I work with money is I just use it as a way to look at your relationship with currencies as a whole. So think temp, time, energy, money, and people.
Mm-hmm.
All
Okay.
forms of currency.
Okay.
So money, we look at how you do money is how you do everything. So for an accumulator, for example, one of the 8 languages of money, we look at an accumulator is going to be very tight with money, fear-based relationship with money, has a lot of money, may show up in an extreme as kind of the broke millionaire,
Yeah.
has a hole in their shoes, won't buy new ones, but has, $65,000 million in the bank kind of a thing. They probably collect things. They probably have, old dolls in boxes. They might have, coffee cup collections. They probably have boxes of noodles or rice or something, canned foods. It's that kind of hoarding mentality to hold on to the fear-based relationship. And then when they're showing up with their time, they're either specifically punctual or early. And when it comes time to when you look at their relationships with people, typically accumulators are not the most giving energetically.
Yeah.
Often standoffish.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not that they don't have the ability to. There's just a fear around letting any energy out, whether it's time, energy, money, or people.
Yeah.
So it's how you do money is how you do everything. So I look at, I don't get into too much of like personal relationships. I'm separated, so I'm not going to be the relationship coach, but I definitely do talk to my clients about how is this showing up at home? How is this showing up in areas of your business? How is this showing up as you're running your team? All these certain things. Because if you're not having fun with your relationship with money, it's going to show up in other areas, and the money is just the evidence of what's going on everywhere else.
I love that. So, God, I don't know how we're at 27 minutes.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I know. That's why I'm like, ow, how did that happen?
How did that happen?
And you've got a training program to do, so we have to get you going.
I know.
So let's leave people with this. What's the one way that you're playing with money today? Or playing with finances? Yeah, whichever.
Me personally?
Yeah, sure. Or that you want to offer people in closing. Like, how can they play?
How can they play?
Yeah, let's do that.
How can they play with money today? They can, ABC, always bring cash.
Ooh, okay.
Always bring cash. If money attracts money, and this is not a wealth building conversation, this is just how you have fun with money is you acknowledge money. And you just keep some cash in your wallet at all times, and you acknowledge it, and you say thank you for it, and you smile when you see it, and you start healing your relationship just by having it with you at all times. ABC, always bring cash.
I love that. Awesome.
Yes. Yay.
Okay, good. I'll do that. I have cash. It's not a lot, but I have some cash.
Never take that last dollar bill out of your wallet. There's always another way. Keep some money in your wallet at all times.
Okay. Good tip. I love that.
ABC.
Okay. Always bring cash.
Yep.
Awesome. Liz Dederer, thank you.
Thank
you guys
you.
can find out more about Liz. I'll be posting everywhere, but it's speakyourvalue.com. She's got an ebook and some really good stuff. So if you want to do a deeper dive, please do reach out to her. And Liz, I love you. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll see you guys next week. Bye.